Good. Okay, I'm recording it now, and everybody's good with that? Okay, let me put this on speaker so we can hear everybody. Let's see. Hold on a second.
Hope you don't mind my
Hope you don't mind what?
Hope you don't mind my sipping on some coffee while we work.
Stepping on coffee? I definitely mind that. Susan, are you okay with him stepping? Oh, sipping. Did you say sipping? Well, I'm having my breakfast, so I don't know. I guess, Susan, it's okay with you? All right. For the record, since we're being recorded,
Yeah.
Anthony can sip his coffee and Donna can have her breakfast. Susan, what are you doing?
I have a bottle of water.
Okay, well you're just hanging in there. All right. Now, Anthony, you brought up a beautiful thing. You said that the street outside your home, you you would feel confident that when it's quiet there, it's clear to go. Right?
Generally speaking, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, okay, yes and no. Yes, you go when it's quiet, you can go. But there's not a lot of people who really walk in this area. Most of them have a vehicle of some kind, of some sort.
Yeah.
So you do have to be mindful. And the cars, they don't necessarily slow down because they're used to not a lot of people being around.
Interesting.
Very quickly.
Yeah.
Even though this is residential, this is not a main street.
Yeah.
We're way off the main drag.
You're bringing up so many interesting things that we're going to be discussing in great detail. And one is, you don't trust that the drivers are going to stop for you.
No.
Interesting. Okay, and that's one of the things we're going to talk about when we talk about what are the risks of crossing. Beautiful. And let's go back to your criteria that on your street, when it's quiet, it's clear. And I'm wondering what kind of a situation would there be that when it's quiet, you don't know if it's clear or not? What can you describe what that might look like?
If there should be a landscaper around and the lawnmower and the weed whacker and the blower is going, you get a lot of that now with the warmer weather. In Brigantine, there's constantly construction, reconstruction, demolition, so there's heavy equipment coming up and down the streets. There could be a dumpster out in front of the house.
Wow. So what you're talking about, there are situations where it's not quiet.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So when it's quiet, you can be confident it's clear to cross, but sometimes it's not quiet.
No.
Great. And by the way, our research really backs you up. We did some research where we had 21 blind people coming, 2 and 3 at a time, sitting in my mother's lawn chairs at 3 different crossings with 4 different situations. In one of the situations, the street was straight in both directions. All these streets were the narrowest that streets can be, which is about 30 feet, and two-way and residential, very quiet. It was one of the quietest ones we could find, communities. So in one of these, there was a straight street in both directions, and we would have them sitting and listening and reporting when they thought they heard something that might be a car or a vehicle, and they'd report that, and then we would always take the first person to report it. We wouldn't wait till, okay, that one heard it, but what about the other two? We took that first detection and timed from when they heard it to when it arrived. And we would do that for, I don't know, maybe 20 or 30 approaches. And then at that one place, we would have them, one of us would walk them around and give them a break and some snacks and whatever, while the other one set up a barrier to the left, and we would bring them back. And it was funny because a couple times somebody would lean toward the left and say, "Donna, is there a..." Shh, quiet. We don't want to hear it. I don't know I don't know what you're talking about. I just mind your own business and do what you're told.
Do you have the same people who just made the crossing a few minutes earlier?
No, none of them crossed. They just report. They were sitting in the chairs, and reporting when they heard. Each chair was behind the other, so they all had clear. No one was blocking the sound of the cars. I'm sorry.
No, it was fine.
Yeah, and so they um, reported when they heard something from the left or the right, and then we would find out how much time from when they heard it to when it arrived. And we were also measuring when they heard it, how loud was it around there? Was there, like you were saying, what did you say, construction, or what did you say, a lawnmower,
Yeah.
landscaping?
Well,
Yeah,
keeping it.
yeah. So we recorded, was there something like that going on? And if so, how loud was that in decibels? And we found out that this is no surprise to you, I'm sure. I'm sure we need lots of researchers with lots of subjects to find out that, when there was more noise, they heard it much later than
Yeah.
yeah. Hello. So what you were just saying makes a lot of sense. So you're assuming that it's clear to cross when quiet, but there are a lot of times when it's not quiet, and so you're not sure then if you still have enough warning of, if you can hear them with enough warning, right?
Yep.
All right. Well, I have some news for you because as I said, we had 3 situations, and we made a 4th one by putting a barrier up to see if that would make it harder for them to hear, if they would hear it later. And I think we didn't make the barrier big enough because it really didn't affect it that much. They were hearing them just about as well with that barrier there as they were without it. But there was one crossing where, and this was residential, this was extremely quiet. As I said, it was one of the quietest intersections that we could find. And yet, when it was quiet, some of the cars they couldn't hear until they were like 4 or 5 seconds away.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I'm taking it not these were the new quote unquote hybrids.
No, actually it was not. It's funny because we also measured how loud was the car itself when it drove by.
Right.
And we found, well, let me just ask you, what do you think we found? Did that have an effect on how much time from when they heard it to when it arrived?
Sure, because
Of course.
It's after. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you're well into the cycle now.
Yeah. That's right. If it's quiet, or if it's fast, you're going to hear them much later than when they're noisy, or the car's noisy or slow, right?
Right.
Wrong. We were blown away. How loud the car was itself had no relation, none, with how much time from when they heard it. And the speed had a slight, what do you call it? It slightly had an effect on how much time from when you heard it to when it arrived, but not much at all. The biggest one was what you had said before. How loud was the ambient sound around? How quiet was it? That was the biggest one. But even that couldn't predict, with certainty that there was a direct correlation between ambient sound and how much time from when you heard it to when it arrived. So we don't know all the variables that can affect it, but we do know. Well, the one that where they couldn't hear it until it was 4 seconds later had a bend in the road. So we found that, and another one had a hill. And so we found out that if there's a bend in the road or a hill, that does have an effect, not as much as how much the ambient sound is, but it can affect it. But Anthony, I've seen places where the road is perfectly straight. I can see them several blocks away. You just can't hear them. Don't know if it's because of the pavement that doesn't make a sound. In fact, there was one, I have a video of a couple of mobility instructors sent me of a street where you can see them a couple blocks away. It's relatively quiet, but you can't hear them until they get just a couple seconds away from you. And so they brought, I don't know if you've heard of Daniel Kish. He's a guy who really works a lot with acoustics and echolocation and whatnot, a blind mobility instructor. So they brought him there to show it to him. and when they went, they could hear fine. They could hear them way far. Oh, turns out they had repaved the road, so now um, what what had been very difficult to hear was now easier to hear.
So they repaved the road. It was smooth, and now it was easier to hear.
Yeah, you could hear them much further away. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. So there are all kinds of factors that can affect how well you can hear those vehicles approaching, and we don't know them all. We researched where we looked at four things: how loud was the ambient sound, was there a hill or a bend, how loud was the car
one of them.
itself. Huh?
The road surface apparently now is one of them.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the manufacturers of tires are under sort of a, they're being encouraged to make them quieter and quieter, so the tires themselves can have quite an effect on how loud they are. But like I said, how loud the car was itself as it went by uh, had no bearing on how much time from when you hear it to. Isn't that kind of freaky?
Yeah,
Yeah, freaky,
it really
freaky.
is.
Yeah. So when you said, "Hey, when it's quiet at my street, we have plenty of warning. So when it's quiet, you know nothing's coming." We don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah.
How could you find out if that's true or not?
Um, well, I guess well, if you really wanted to take it, you could probably do what a controlled. Not really do what
Well, it's interesting you say controlled experience because we're talking about your street. What's the name of your street?
Tollette circle.
What kind of circle?
Tollette.
Toilette? Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so you want to do a little, I guess you could call it an experiment. So you want to find out, is Toilette Circle one of those places where, or one of the situations, excuse me, where, yeah, when it's quiet, you know nothing's coming. If something was coming that could reach you, you would have heard it. Or is it one of those situations where, geez, even when it's quiet there, I can't hear all the cars with enough warning? How could you find out if that's the case?
Um. Good question.
That's my job. Good questions.
And now you're saying the manufacturers of tires are also being encouraged to make them quieter and
Yeah,
quieter and
yeah,
quieter.
yeah.
If everything's fuel efficient, um, quiet, less noise. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, now that was the problem for us.
Well, as I said, how quiet the car is itself was not a factor. And I will say that at the places we were at, the speed limit I think was 25, but they were all going at least 20. And when a car is going at least 20, then the hybrids are the same as you're not hearing the engine anymore. You're hearing the wind going over the car and the tire noise. So the hybrids were not an issue in this. They are an issue like in parking lots or at traffic signals where they're just sitting there quietly. They're not moving very fast or not moving at all. And so that's where they're a problem. But here at Uncontrolled, that's not an issue. Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so here we are at Toilette Circle, and we're trying to think of, oh, gee, Donna just told me that these these guys are sitting in their mother's lawn chairs, and they couldn't hear some of them at some places until they were just a few seconds away. How can I find out if this is one of those situations? So how could you possibly figure out if your situation in front of your place is one of those or not?
Get a lawn chair and sit.
Exactly. Exactly. And one of the equipment doesn't have to be a lawn chair. It could be just standing there. But if you're old like me, and yeah, bring the lawn chair up and just listen. Yes, exactly, Anthony. That's the only way to know if it's one of those situations or not. Is to listen. Am I hearing them with enough warning? Make sense?
Yeah.
I've got some more bad news for you. You ready? You sitting down?
Yep.
Okay. For the first 10 years that I was doing this, by the way, I've been doing this since about 1988, I think, because a couple of blind friends were killed crossing where there's no traffic control. And so I started looking at, our old, where they crossed when it was quiet, there wasn't enough warning consistently. And so I started thinking, oh, gee, what we've been teaching people isn't really reliable. So what can be done? So I've been looking at this for that's about 30 years. And so the first 10 years, I would work with my clients and we would analyze crossings. We wouldn't bring lawn chairs, but we would do exactly like you said. We'd stand there and listen, and we'd listen for about a half an hour to lots and lots and lots of approaches, and we would note, are we getting enough warning or not? And then so I would shake their hand and we'd stamp approval, or ooh, no, this is not one where you can have enough warning, and then I'd be done. And then I realized, this is the bad part, situations can change. Yeah. What could make it so that when it's quiet, you can hear them with enough warning, but things change, and then when it's quiet, you can't? Can you think of anything that might make it harder for you to hear when it's quiet than at other times?
Construction.
Well, that's making noise. So we're going to say that but actually you bring up one of the things is how loud is quiet. And here's another one that freaked me out. In 1970, I think it was, when they were trying to mitigate noise, they decided to find out, well, how much noise is there? And so we can't mitigate noise that we don't know, we can't measure how well we're doing if we don't know what kind of noise is there. So they put these sound level meters in, I think it's 21 places. One was in a farm right out next to Grand Canyon. You can imagine how quiet that was. And another one was in a windowsill in Manhattan, downtown Manhattan, or something like that. So they had a whole variety of places that they left these sound level meters for a day, 24 hours, and then they came to collect them. And they found that there would be, the sound level meter would be at a certain level, and then you'd hear a dog bark, and the little needle would go up, boom, until the dog, the sound of the dog disappeared, and it would go down to a certain level. And then a car would go by, and so the meter would go up and then come back down to that same level. And so every time there was a noise, it would leave that level, go up until the noise was gone, and then come back down to that same level. They called it residual sound level, and it's what you and I would call quiet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so they measured how loud was quiet, how many decibels was quiet. And they found a huge difference. Now, it's no surprise that when it got too quiet, that residual sound level in downtown Manhattan was a heck of a lot louder than it was on the farm next to the Grand Canyon. When it got quiet there, it was really, really quiet.
And just to clarify, when you say residual sound level, we're not referring to the traffic. We're referring to, obviously, everything else that could interfere with that.
Beautiful. Well, yes. It's funny because you can't hear anything specific, but every community has this residual sound level. And my sister-in-law worked for she was a DJ, a entertainment disc jockey, or whatever you call it, on the radio. And so she would leave like at 4 o'clock in the morning every morning. And she said she could tell if there was a holiday or not, because when she got out of the house, just the sound level of quiet was lower. So there was less activity in her community. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So the sound level, I'll have to go look it again, but I think, let me see, maybe I have it here. I think the difference was just amazing. Now, sound level is measured in decibels.
Right.
Great, my computer went to sleep. And so that is a logarithmic measurement. So every change in 10 decibels doubles the difference. So a change in 20 decibels means it's 4 times louder or softer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so
So it's like that's the changes. It really becomes what? Oh, wow, 4 times that amount.
well, I was gonna give you some numbers, but I wanted to prepare you for the fact that a change in 10 decibels means it's twice as loud. Let me see if I can find where I have it in there. No, that's not the one. And by the way, Susan, I'm scrolling through the thumb drive that you're going to get.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it's one more here. No. Let's get this one here. Oh crap. Okay, so I will find out later, but I think that the difference between when it was quiet at let's say noon at the farm was 20 decibels less than, I think maybe more, maybe 30 decibels. I'm sorry, I'm going to find out for sure here because I don't want to give you, especially since we're being recorded. So, what I'm looking for, by the way, both of you, is there's a self-study guide on uncontrolled crossings that has all this information.
Now that was that in with the link that you sent me?
Nope.
Or no?
Nope.
This is something separate. Okay.
I think I sent you the self-study guide for signals, and there's one for not signals. So let me just see here. What is quiet? Varies. Here we go. Varies between. Okay.
Quick question.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So if you were at an intersection, well, providing that it was uncontrolled, you approach an intersection and there's a bus that happens to sit in your parallel street
Right.
on a regular basis with its engine idling every day, and you have to make this crossing at the same time. Let's just say at 1 p.m. That bus would that constitute as residual sound?
Yes, in my mind, it would. If it's staying there throughout your crossing, then
Yeah.
then that's the sound level of. That's as quiet as it's going to get. Let me put it that way. It's as quiet as it's going to get. That's a great question, Anthony. Well, what do you think? Let me ask you. Would you consider? Would that be part of your scenario?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, you want to weigh the risk because first of all, if it's in your parallel street, you're not going to get good parallel traffic, and if you do, it's not going to be close enough because they got to get around that bus.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very hard to hear.
Are we at a signal or an uncontrolled?
What's the uncontrolled? Yeah.
Uncontrolled?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter where that bus is, but it's going to mask some of the sounds, and so yeah, that residual sound level is going to include the sound of that bus wherever it is. So one of the things we're gonna talk about is risk analysis. First of all, does it reduce it enough does it make it difficult enough to hear the warning of approaching vehicles enough to be let me just explain. Oh no, I'm going to talk about that in a minute, what all this is about. And so that would certainly affect that. And then if you find out that it's making it so that you can't tell if it's clear or not, then we're going to look at analyzing risk. How much risk is there in crossing in that situation? And is that acceptable? And if not, what alternatives might you consider? And so if the risk is not acceptable, what might you do? What alternative might you come up with?
You could either go to another, so listen
Yeah.
to this then.
Yeah.
listen assistant, or if there's another, maybe a block or so down,
Yeah.
it's going to get to the same place, you can go down there and cross directions.
Exactly, Anthony. Get away from the darn bus. Go somewhere where you can hear better.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. Oh, we're gonna have fun when we're talking about looking for alternatives because I think you've got them right under your hat there. All right, so here's the let's go to the residual sound of quiet. At quiet suburban residential areas, when it was quiet, it was 36 to 40 decibels, and that's what it was at the place where we were doing our research. It was 36 to 40 decibels during the day when it was quiet. Urban suburban residential was 42 to 56 decibels. So already that's 20, no, yeah, that's 20 more than or 10 to 20 more than the quiet residential. And in cities, it was 62 to 69 decibels. So that is, yeah, about 25 decibels louder than the quiet suburban residential. And so if each 10 is doubled, that means it's about 4 or 5 times as loud at quiet in the city than it is in the quiet suburban residential. Susan, that's why I decided not to use that Penn station. I'm so sorry. Oh, Anthony, I feel so bad. She's so good. She's so up for it. She's up for anything. I sent her down to Penn Station. I said, "There's some streets there. Let's go check them out for Anthony, so that when he comes down, we can go and play in traffic there." And she found out. First of all, it's 4 lanes wide, and we want like 2 lanes. And I don't know why I didn't stop her right there, but okay, well, 4 lanes or so. And then I'm thinking, you've got to be able to hear with enough warning to get across 4 lanes of traffic, 4 lanes of street. And then Susan, I thought, oh my gosh, it's a given that it's going to be about 60 decibels at quiet. So already we're cutting down. Yeah, it would be a very quick lesson. He would take one look at it and say, "No, what are you ladies? You ladies nuts? I can't hear with enough warning to get across 4 lanes of traffic." So we decided to do it a street that I'll find in near New Carrollton because there are some nice residential areas near there. And then as I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking, okay, now we got to figure out how to get you in the car and get you over there. So I'll put some thought to it. But anyway, I told Anthony to make the street 35 feet across. How wide is the street in front of you? How wide is your circle there?
30. Oh, the average.
How many lanes is it?
Oh, it's probably just one. I would say just two.
Two, one for each direction, and then maybe a little room to park. If somebody parks there, 2 people can get by or not.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there's room to park. Everybody here has driveways, but
Yeah.
whether they use them, that's another story.
Huh. Okay. So we know now that different places have different sound levels of quiet. And we know from our research that ambient sound has a huge effect on how much warning you get about approaching vehicles. The other thing that was shocking is that each place had the sound level of quiet varied. Here's a typical residential community. At 2 o'clock in the morning, it's about 30 decibels at quiet. By 8 o'clock, it's 42 decibels. 12 more decibels, meaning it's twice as loud at quiet than it was at 2 o'clock in the morning. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it's 48. Well, that's almost 20 decibels more than it was at 2 o'clock in the morning. So it's almost 4 times as loud as it was.
Yeah.
So it can change. The situation can change during the day in your own at the same place routinely. Yeah, so that's one thing that can make a difference so that you can hear maybe with enough warning at one time when it's quiet at that place and you can't at another time of the day at that same place. What else might make it so that even when it's quiet, you're not able to hear the cars as well as you were before?
Weather conditions.
Beautiful. Beautiful. What kind of
Wind.
things? Wind.
Wind is extreme.
Yeah, yeah,
If it's snowing, if it's raining.
yeah. Now, wind actually can make sound. Yeah, it can carry the sound so that it's distorting it, maybe making not so hard, not so easy to hear. But it can also make us. It can make an ambient sound itself, so that the level of quiet is changed. But you talked about snow. You ever notice how it kind of muffles the sound? It kind of absorbs the sound.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So whereas one time you could hear it fine, and another time, oh, you know what? I can't quite. I can't hear them until they get a little closer.
Especially
Also,
when it's coming
uh huh.
hard and it's hitting the face and yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I was gonna take a group of students like Susan out into the street and go play with them, and I thought I'll make them like really shocked, and so I'm gonna find a place where they'll think, oh, you can't hear enough well here, and you can, and so I found this perfect place. It was up in Baltimore, Susan, and it was perfect because there was this constant sound going on, and just like the bus, I took it as my ambient sound level of quiet, but it was constant, and yet I could hear the cars like a block or two away. I could hear them way out there, and I'm thinking, oh, sweet. So the next morning, when I met the group and we went out there, and I said, what do you think, guys? Can you hear well enough? No, they said, of course not. I'm thinking, they're going to be so surprised. I said, well, let's listen. And when we listened, I thought, oh, you know what? I can't hear them either. Why could I hear them last night? Oh, last night the roads were wet. Today the roads are dry. Yeah, yeah. So that can change. It's the same level of quiet, but you can hear them much further when the roads are wet than when they're dry.
How about your perpendicular street?
Oh,
If you got somebody on a motorcycle just sitting there.
yeah, yeah. And again, we're talking about raising the level of ambient sound, right?
Right.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm talking about even when it's quiet, sometimes things can affect, like when it could be the same level of quiet when the roads are wet as when they're dry. So that's not the problem. The problem is now you can hear the cars better than or not. Another thing is you said mentioned snow. So it's quiet and yet the sound's being absorbed. You can't quite hear them with as much warning as you could when there was no. And so also when the leaves are out, some of the leaves absorb sound, some of the leaves reflect sound. So whether it's summer or winter, with leaves on the trees, can affect it. Um, and again, we're talking about the same level of quiet. We're not talking about changes in the sound level of quiet. But another thing is if there's something parked that's blocking the sound, it could be the same level of quiet, but for some reason you're not able to hear them from the right like you used to. So you've had that experience, right, Anthony?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So there's a lot of things that can affect how well you can hear those cars and trucks and whatever. And so going out and analyzing your crossing there will help you for that situation, but you don't know if that's going to be different in the winter with the snow on the ground and the leaves gone, or when the roads are dry versus wet versus whatever. So you kind of have to do this little analysis each time you consider crossing. Is that discouraging?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
You're up for that. Sure, why not? All right. So, can you kind of tell me what we've covered so far? Let me take my notes. What have we learned so far?
Assessing the risk when making a crossing, before making a crossing,
Yeah, yeah.
intersection, and we focus on specific uncontrolled crossings.
Yeah, this is all about uncontrolled crossings. But I'm sorry, yeah, we should make that clear.
Crossing.
Yeah, so what did we learn about uncontrolled crossings? Like, I'm assuming the street in front of your place, there's no stop sign for cars on that street. Is that right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
so that's like
Uh,
that.
the
When you,
level of quiet.
yeah, that's right. It can change. Yep, yep. When you said assess risk, let's talk about what we're looking at. What do we need? Oh, by the way, did you find out how long it takes you to cross the 35 feet?
Um, about 10 minutes to get across the other side of the street. Maybe
Uh huh.
about 10 seconds.
So you didn't really measure with a stopwatch and
Yeah,
whatnot? Okay.
but I will though. I can measure it.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're not there now, are you?
Uh, yeah, I'm inside. Yeah.
Okay. Could you take the phone out with you? Are you on a cell phone?
I am. I'm holding that the cane. It might be a. Yeah.
Okay. Because is it possible for you to go that street? Is it like a little? You've crossed that many times your street?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. What I'd like you to do, we'll time it. If you could take the cell phone out with you, go out to the curb or the whatever you have in front of your street, your house, your home, and tell us when you're starting to cross and tell us when you reach the other side.
Let's see if I can get that.
Susan, you got your stopwatch?
Yes.
Hmm. One second. Yeah. Are you still there?
We are.
Yeah.
And you're out at your street with your cell phone?
Yeah.
Let's take a moment to celebrate how cool technology is. We want to find out Anthony's street crossing time. We're hundreds of miles, well, I don't know how far we are. Yeah, we're hundreds of miles away.
Yeah.
And we're going to get a street crossing time. Susan, is this like awesome or what?
Yeah.
We should have thought of this in the beginning, Anthony. I was thinking about that later. I thought, oh, you need to go measure something and then you need to time it. And no, we just need to have you actually cross a street. And if possible, I don't know if you're on a cell phone that takes pictures.
Yeah, but I'm not very good at it.
Okay, okay. All right. So we'll get your crossing time. And you know what we can do is maybe, we probably can't, it's probably not on Google Maps. It's probably too isolated, right? You're on a dead end or something.
I mean, we can look it up. I can give it to the guy. Yeah.
Okay, because then we could find out how many lanes it is and blah, blah, blah. All right, you tell us when you're starting to cross and tell us when you reach the other side.
Okay. Let's see. Right now.
Good.
At the other side.
All right, now could you stay there at the other side? And Susan, what'd you get?
7:58.
7:58. Great. All right. So Anthony, if you could get yourself squared away on the other side and get ready to come back, tell us when you start and tell us when you reach the other side.
Right now. Okay.
Wow.
Ooh.
What'd you get, Susan? Huh?
5:17.
Let's write that down. So we had seven. What was 7-5? You said.
Yeah, 7-5 and now 5-7.
All right, Anthony. You can go back inside. Well, just for fun,
Yeah.
could you take a picture and send it to us? Just aim it. Do you know how to do it? Take a picture.
Not really.
Not really. Okay, great. All right. If somebody, we'll see if we can find it on Google Maps, and if not, I'll ask you to have somebody go take a picture of that because we want to find something just like it down here where we can have you apply what you're learning. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So you can go back inside,
All right.
and we have two. And sorry, Susan. What was it again? 7.5.
Yeah, 7.5 and 5.7. So the first one, he took longer.
Whoa! I was going to have him figure that out.
Ah.
Oh, but your goddess is maybe he didn't hear. You are not listening, are you, Anthony? He's busy.
I'm here.
Oh darn. All right, so we have two crossing. Oh, I can't write this down here. We have two crossing times for you. Once it only took you about 5.5 seconds.
Right.
Crossing time, and the other time was about 7.5 seconds. So. What should we do? We average them together. Should we take it as the longest one since you needed that much time once?
Is that what we would normally?
Susan and I have an answer in our head, but I'm just curious what you think, Anthony. What we will take as your crossing time.
Would you go with the longer one because it allows you that extra second or two?
Boom. Not that it allows that extra second, but you needed that much time once.
Right.
So we can't say, you don't really need all that time because you made it across in 5.5 seconds. So we'll take average amount. No, Anthony, exactly. We take the longest one. Just maybe what you meant was to be on the safe side, right?
Yeah.
The worst case scenario. Yeah. In the worst case scenario, you took 7.5 seconds to cross. Now maybe that was because you had these two women on your ear, but whatever. You never know what's going to distract you. So crossing time is going to be 7.5 seconds. All right, good. That makes it easy. I think all that remains is for me to make sure that you understand what the heck this is all about. When you talked about analyzing the risk, what we're trying to figure out is how can we be sure that when it's quiet, nothing is going to reach me. It's clear, right?
Right.
Right. And meaning that if there was a car or something coming that would have reached me, you'd have heard it.
Yeah.
Right. So so we know that you need 7.5 seconds to cross. So how much warning time are you going to need to know that something's coming in order to be confident that if you hear nothing coming, it's clear to cross? How much warning do you need? There's a car coming, and you're standing there about to cross your circle, and you want to know, do I have enough time to get across before he can reach me? How much warning do you need? How many seconds of warning do you need that to make sure that you know nothing is within crossing time? That can reach you during your crossing.
Not going to be the same time we're taking to
Exactly. Exactly. I cut you off with laughing, but say it again. How much?
To complete the crossing.
Exactly.
So in this case of 7.5 seconds,
Exactly.
then you should have seconds when listening
Exactly.
on the car.
You need to be able to hear all the approaching vehicles at least 7.5 seconds away. If you can't hear them with that much warning, then you won't know it's clear or not.
Okay.
All right. Ooh. Now, what does ooh mean? Tell me about ooh. Did you just get an insight?
No.
Okay. thought you were struck with the profound beauty of that simple thing that I've been beating around the bush for, I don't know, an hour now to get to. This is the crux of it, Anthony. You need to know that you can hear all the approaching vehicles at that crossing at least 7.5 seconds away. And we call that the warning time. Technically, when we were doing our research, it was the detection to arrival time. So when those subjects were sitting in the lawn chairs and they first detected something, and we said, don't wait to make sure it's a car or not, because we're going to slap you if you do a false alarm. We said, we want you to report as soon as you hear something that might be a vehicle. And so they raised their hand as soon as they heard something that might be a vehicle. A lot of times it wasn't, but we would thank them because that's what we wanted. As soon as you hear something that might be a vehicle, in other words, something that would make you, oh, let me wait and make sure, because I don't want to cross, that could be a car coming. So the time from when they first detected it, not till they identified that as a car, but they detected something until it arrived, we called that detection to arrival time. And you and and Susan are going to call it warning time. It's the time from when you first heard it to it arrived. That's how much warning you had that it's coming. Make sense?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yes.
All right. Well, we're doing good here. So you want to make sure that you can recognize when you're not getting enough warning. And Anthony, for the first, 20 years that I was teaching this, I was amazed that people just didn't get it. And I remember, I would say, so we heard that car and then it arrived. Would you have made it to the other side? Thinking, no way. And so many people said, yeah, duh. And so this one time I was with a high school student and it was 4 lanes and he, and I always take them to a nice crossing situation, and I ask them to guess: is this one of those situations I was telling about where you have enough warning, or that you don't have enough warning? By the way, when you don't have enough warning, we're calling that now situations of uncertainty, meaning you hear nothing coming, so it could be clear, but you're not really certain because you don't have enough warning. There could be something coming that's out of earshot but close enough to reach you. So we call that situation of uncertainty. And we struggled for a long time to what to call situation where you do have enough warning, because nothing is certain, right? I can't be certain the sun's going to rise tomorrow. I'm pretty sure it is, but it has so far, but nothing is certain. And so I was doing a workshop one time and I said, guys, help me come up with a word. And so we came up with situation of confidence, because if you can hear all the vehicles with enough warning, you can be confident that when you hear nothing coming, there's nothing coming. If there was, you'd have heard it. Make sense?
Yeah.
I love the Every once in a while we get a little I'm going to be looking for those Anthony. We're going to see how many we can collect in an hour. We've got 2 so far. All right. So we want to find out. So I was always teaching people to recognize, are we in a situation of uncertainty or not? So here's this high school student, 4 lanes, and there was a little bit of a hill over to the right. And so by the time he heard it, I said, oh, here comes a car. If you had started to cross just before you heard it, would you have made it to the other side? I think, Anthony, it was something like 5 seconds. And to cross, you took 7 to cross 2 lanes. This was 4 lanes. So he said, sure, I could. And I thought, oh my God, what universe? What is wrong with these people? So I took him into the parking lot because I couldn't tell if it was clear. I wasn't going to have him cross, and so I took him into the parking lot. I had marked out how wide the street was in the parking lot. And so I had him cross, and it took him 10 seconds to cross. And just out of curiosity, I said, oh, I'm curious. I'd like you to start in your mind crossing tell me when you reach the other side. He said, I'm starting. And 5 seconds later, he said, I'm there. And I thought, oh, that explains everything. Because he didn't have what I now call a good intuitive understanding of his crossing time. He thought he would be across in half the time that he needed. So when that car came by, he thought, yeah, I'll be on the other side. Well, that was because he just didn't have a good intuitive understanding of his crossing time. So I did something right then that Susan's going to do with you. And I said, well, let's just show you. That was only halfway across. And so I said, if you started now, you'd be in the middle now. I didn't sing at the time, I'm just entertaining you. And now you'd be on the other side. So he said, oh. And for him, it was so quick. He got it immediately. And I had him do it a couple times like Susan's going to do with you. And he got it immediately. Now, I hadn't told him he was so wrong when he said he'd have plenty of time. I said, okay, now let's go take you back to the crossing. And we'll see if you were right, that there was plenty of time. Oh, here comes a car. There it goes. So would you have had time to cross? No way, he said. All he needed was that intuitive understanding of his crossing time. And that's what we're going to do with you. We're going to give you a good intuitive understanding of what we now know. It was so cool having you cross the street. I'm sorry, but that was my little having. All right, Anthony, we don't know how long. 10 seconds, you say? You kind of pulled that out of your head. Let's just see. No, you made it in 5.5, 7.5. So now we know how much time you need to cross. Susan, are you feeling ready to take over here at this point?
Yeah, can I go to the Zoom?
Yeah, I was going to say, Anthony, is it possible you can join us on Zoom?
Yeah.
Okay,